I don't even know what else to say to that one. That's just real heavy. But I was thinking that pastor must have some serious game.
His swag. Well, he's 54 right now. I think he was 51 when this all started. So he's seasoned. He's originally from Bermuda, where he was the man of the hour. You know, he bragged about the fact that women would come from all over the country to come see him. He also was a radio announcer there, so he was Mr. Quiet Storm. So, of course, when you have someone who, I'm somewhat naive when it comes to things like that. I've always been married. You know, I've never really ran the street and had to deal with that sort of thing. So, yes, his game is tight. You know, he's set the stage. Like, before, for 9 months, all he did, he was my pastor and my counselor for 9 months. No man gets to know a woman for 9 months in a relationship. Normally you meet, you know, a couple months, maybe 2 months later, you know, you're in this relationship. But somebody to slowly, methodically get to know you, they don't want anything from you. You don't see, I mean, he never let on that he was attracted to me at all for 9 months. So he was supportive, encouraging, everything. And then it started changing. And I didn't even see it coming. I was just so excited that after coming through something so bad, something that I needed to get away from, that somebody was actually supportive of what it is I was doing. You know, I came down to South Jersey and I started selling real estate. I was making money hand over fist. You know, he was so supportive. He didn't want anything, referring me clients, and I was excited. And all I was doing is going to church. I was eager to do God's work and just to be more the woman that God wanted me to be. And he's like, I don't like this Shannon Bellamy. You know, I want the new Shannon Bellamy. You know, he said, if I would only date the new Shannon Bellamy, you know, if I was single. But he never, ever led on to the fact that he was ever interested. You know, I always went to church with my collar up tight, you know. As I said, you know, I went through all this cosmetic surgery. So, you know, everything you see is enhanced, you know. So I was always conservative. So it wasn't as if I was flirtatious, and neither was he. And it wasn't until my real estate broker had embezzled my money. I think that's the proper word. He took my commissions because he was holding on my money, because I just felt it was safer because I was making so much money and it was easier for him to hold it. And he had gotten a new office, and he used my money for it. He was paying all my bills. We had an arrangement where I would just give him my bills, pay him, and say, okay, fine, just give me $3,000. I'm doing this or that or whatever. And it wasn't an issue for me. And we were really close, me and my broker. And then he used the money for a new office, and the city had held him up on all these permits. So he stopped paying my bills, and I didn't know it. And so then I was faced with eviction. And I get a letter, you have to move. What do you mean I have to move? And I'm like, I tell my broker, where's my money? And he's like, I don't have it. What do you mean you don't have it? So here it is. I'm in this 3,500 square foot house with my children, and I'm renting, and I have 72 hours to move. And I called the church, and I asked this mega church that I was attending, you know, would they help me at least get into my new place with the security? They told me no. I'm like, after the thousands of dollars I've tied to this church, they told me no. So I called the pastor and I said, listen, you know, would you help me get some boxes so I can put my stuff in storage? He said, sure, me and my wife will come. He came, not his wife. So, okay, he takes me to get the boxes, and we're packing up stuff. I'm upset, I'm distraught, because I've never been homeless, never been out here, and now I'm in a foreign country, a foreign land, and I'm crying, I'm upset. Next thing you know, he's kissing me, and next thing you know, we're on the floor. You know, and in my book, I say, oh, it was a Monica Lewinsky, and people are telling me now that it infers that there was oral sex. That's not what I was inferring. What I was inferring is that, you know, we had sex and that he ejaculated on my T-shirt. And what startled me was the doorbell rang, and it was a realtor who was coming to help me get another storage unit. And I was so disheveled by the whole thing, because I was emotional, that I didn't even try to cover it up or nothing. I just walked out of the house, and I introduced them, and her and I went to the storage unit. And he introduced himself, and he just left. But I didn't even try and cover anything because I was just so out of it. And I reported it to the bishop the next day. So, you know, I talk about those things, you know, in the book. And I'm extremely transparent. You know, I reveal the name of the church in the book and the pastors. I'm extremely transparent because my platform is same-sex counseling. I'm looking for a mandate where churches have to have same-sex counseling, where men are counseling men, women are counseling women. Because even after this incident, had the bishop of the church referred me to a woman to counsel me, walk me through this thing, I wouldn't have wrote the book. This situation probably would not have went on as long as it did.
Okay. Wow. Erica, how does the man in your book relate to the man in her book?
Very similar. Very similar. I mean, you have here, in this case, you have the wife, and in Shannon's book, it is a true story, but you have her as the mistress, is what they would consider. Mm-hmm. But, it shows how both are being abused mentally, mentally. You have someone playing with people's feelings and, with people's emotions, and it's a man doing it. So it's not that, I wrote this book, we all have been hurt. Men are not, immune to being hurt by women. Right. Women have hurt men too. That's right. But I think women, we are in a more vulnerable position a lot of times. We have children. We want that family structure. We want a man to protect and cover us. And when this character, she feels covered. Finally, she has someone to marry her, and she's a woman now that's covered, and she can't even trust in the man that she's laying next to every night. So it's just two different sides of the same problem. And whereas Shannon is talking about how she was going for healing, this character is ultimately she's seeking that healing. That she wasn't brought up in the church, but from the things that she's starting to do, she knows that she needs her own healing. She can't, as many people as she may get revenge on, or as many men as she tripped up, and I don't want to give different instances, but she really took it to the men for the ladies, and she started feeling like she was doing it for women, not just for herself. Like she was on it like, this is for the ladies, and I'm getting all these men back. But she came to a place where she met two other men, and they both were falling in love with her, and she was so scarred. It comes to a point where your inner confidence is gone, and you don't even know now what love is. You don't know what to believe. You don't know. So she had two men that were falling in love with her, and now she can't believe that anyone can even love her.
Right.
So one becomes a victim of her, being scorned, and the other one, she gives, her heart to. Right. But in the meantime, she realizes that she needs help. She needs to get over that anger, because, it doesn't do anything. Just like forgiveness. Forgiveness is for the person, not for the other person that harms you. It's for yourself, because you have to let it go. Right. And she was going to destroy herself with revenge, because it's all, what goes around comes around. She wasn't immune to getting it back. So she goes through, where she has to be accountable for her actions, and she has to pay for her consequences. And she has to look in the mirror and say, am I going to think that I can continue to live this way, or do I have to get help on my own?
Yeah. So. The minister once said, he once said, whenever you see a bad woman, that's because there was a bad man there. And one time I was in a relationship, and the female, she was so insecure because of seeing her ex cheating on her, that if my phone rang and it was just a female, or I just smiled at a female, she would jump up and try to choke me.
Those are scars.
She was affected. Yeah.
People need to understand when they do to other people, they're harming them. Right. You can't just do whatever you want to do to people. It affects them, and they react. And it's not condoning. I had a woman who I was promoting, and she came up and said to me, you're promoting revenge. I'm just telling a true emotion, like, something, a reaction,
It's reality. People don't want to believe that it's reality. Like when you were talking about how a woman snapped, it's like one of the books, my next book is called Snap, Look What You Made Me Do. And a woman's, they were talking about, I think it was McNear, where the little young girl killed him. And they says, oh, well, she was young, and, she wasn't African-American. We don't do that. Oh, yes, we do. We do it a lot less because of forensics, but yes, we do.